As many of you know, the Chevy Chase Citizens Association is a nonpartisan membership organization, and we thank those of you who are members. If you're not a member, we look forward to you becoming a member. We're going to have a membership drive in December, and you'll be seeing emails and listservs from us to join up. We provide monthly newsletters and lots of events during the year, including one that's one of my favorites, and as a co-host of Spooktacular, which may or may not come up. That's trick-or-treating along Connecticut Avenue. That's always popular. So I'd like to thank Samantha Nolan for being our timekeeper this evening, Ted Guest for for helping organize this, and ANC3 for helping get the Zoom meeting done. So let me introduce the candidates, and I'm going to do everything in alphabetical order, not by SMD. So the first candidate is Stacy Beck in SMD 4, single member District 4, and she is in a contested event. Next up is Connie Chang, single member District 5, uncontested. Chris Frombaluti is a longtime incumbent, longtime member and incumbent, SMD 7. Lisa Gore is SMD 1 and uncontested. John Higgins, single member District 2 and uncontested. Randy Speck, who many of us know is the incumbent and uncontested single member District 3. And finally, Michael Zeldin, who is also in a contested race for single member District 4. This is an unusual year. We have only 2 incumbents. Typically, it's substantially more than that. So what I'd like to do is start alphabetically once again and ask Stacy Beck to start. The rules are very simple. The introductions are 90 seconds. Samantha will strictly keep that 90-second mark. We'll follow that with 60-second questions and answers. And then finally, a summary or wrap up, which will be 60 seconds. And as I said, it's all going to go somehow in alphabetical order. So with that, Stacy Beck, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And you are, now you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Stacy Beck. I want to thank Bob and the Chevy Chase Citizens Association for having this forum. As Bob mentioned, I'm running in District 4, which is Lafayette Elementary School, the soon to be renamed Lafayette Pointer Park, and the blocks surrounding. A little bit about myself. My husband, John, and I first moved to Chevy Chase when I was pregnant with our oldest child, who is now a freshman in high school. He attends School Without Walls downtown. We also have a 7th grader who is at Deal Middle School, and our youngest is a 4th grader at Lafayette. I'm running to serve as a fresh voice for our neighborhood. I'm a small business owner. I've had a communications consulting business for the past 8 years, primarily doing policy writing. And I also have a photography business specializing in portraits of children and families. I see my time is running out, so I'm just gonna forward to my priorities, which are making sure our overcrowded schools are properly funded, making sure everyone feels welcome in our neighborhood, and supporting our small businesses in our neighborhood during this difficult public health and economic crisis. So I look forward to earning your trust and your vote.
Thank you very much. Next up is Connie Chang.
Hello, my name is Connie Chang. I am running for ANC Commissioner for 3G05. We have a great opportunity before us to reshape our neighborhood and build a stronger community that is vibrant, inclusive, and ready to tackle complex issues that impact us. And this matters to me a great deal. I've lived in DC for the past 25 years, 22 of them in this neighborhood when my husband Nathaniel and I purchased our first home on Nevada Avenue between Livingston and Legation. We have two daughters. My oldest just left for college after attending Lafayette Deal in Wilson High School. And our youngest is a sixth grader at Deal, and it's her 11th birthday today. My professional career has been focused on the intersection of business, government, and technological innovation. I was born and raised in New York City to parents who are intrepid entrepreneurs. And I know the importance to communities of retail businesses, available and attainable housing, and public spaces where residents can gather and meet. And issues of importance to me is the coming renovation of the community center and the library into a campus, a unified campus with affordable housing. Workforce housing, as well as helping our local businesses revive itself, from this COVID, from this pandemic. I will bring to the ANC a dedication to public service, coalition building skills, and experience with public-private partnerships. I seek to build bridges, keep eyes on the big picture, and get the details right. I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Fromboludi.
Hello, I'm running for my 7th term to represent District 3G07. I've been almost 12 years on the commission, and I enjoy it very much. I enjoy being part of the neighborhood and being able to help my constituents and Chevy Chase solve problems. Being a retired architect with more than 50 years of experience, I have a lot of knowledge about building and planning and zoning and all those related things. And I'd like to continue to use that knowledge to the benefit of my district and the ANC. Some of the things that I'm specifically looking forward to working on next year, if I'm elected, I mean, it's always possible there will be a hot write-in. One is continuing my work on the Connecticut Avenue reversible lanes study, which started recently and will probably continue for quite a while. That'll have a big impact on our district. They're looking at adding bike lanes to Connecticut Avenue, getting rid of the reversible lanes, and the impacts that might have to other streets in the area. Working on the new Chevy Chase Main Street project, working on the community center library project with possible inclusion of affordable housing. Hoping the neighborhood will agree to that. And continuing to represent my constituents. So thank you for listening to me. And thank you for the Citizens Association.
Thank you very much, Chris. Next up is Lisa Gore.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chevy Chase Citizens Association, for hosting this event. Thank you for everyone that's joined in with us tonight. I think it's very important that you not only hear from the person that's going to represent your single member district, but everyone that is potentially going to make up your commission. I've lived in Chevy Chase for about 20 years, and my family has actually been here for about 60. I have one son with my husband. He is a DCPS student all the way from Lafayette Deal to Wilson High School. He's an 11th grader now, loves Wilson. Personally, I've done a lot of volunteer work, mainly in the areas of women's health, at-risk youth, definitely core to my heart, and domestic violence issues. And professionally, I might be a little different than some of the panelists, but I know I'm not the only one, because we have had one member of the ANC that was also a criminal justice professional. So by career, I am a criminal investigator, and I'm currently with an inspector general's office. So I am running to represent my single member district very passionately. I'm looking forward to engaging everyone on the issues and supporting and advocating for the people that live in ANC3G01, which is Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Wood.
Thank you. Next up is John Higgins. You're on mute, John. John, your mute is on.
we go. All
There
right,
you
we
go.
got it?
That's okay.
All right. I'll start over. I've been a resident of DC for nearly 50 years. My wife, Katie, and I raised our two sons here and both attended Murch Elementary School. In fact, Katie was the librarian at Murch for 23 years. Before retiring, I was a reporter and editor for several McGraw-Hill business publications, including more than 10 years with Business Week magazine in Cleveland, Minneapolis, and the National Bureau in Washington. Last November, we sold our home in DC and moved just 7 blocks to the Knollwood Life Care community adjacent to Rock Creek Park, where we have found a new, welcoming, and enjoyable senior living experience. To the degree that civic issues in ANC3G02 coincide with my entire constituency, I'll endeavor to pursue them. Mainly, I hope to bring the perspective of a longtime resident to my role with the ANC and contribute to the continued quality of life here in Northwest DC as we navigate through some pretty challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Randy Speck.
Thanks to the CCCA for putting this on. I've lived in the neighborhood with my wife Samantha for 34 years. I've been on the ANC for the last 8 years and chair for the last 6 years. It's been a very rewarding experience for me. I'm a retired lawyer and I've found that my legal skills have come in handy in a lot of things. I've also interacted with most of the DC government agencies over the last 8 years and frequently with the council as well. And so I developed a lot of contacts there that have proved to be very useful for my constituents to help them solve their problems by being able to go to exactly the right person in each of these agencies. What I'm most proud of, though, over the last 8 years is the bigger issues that we've worked on. One was the Ingleside construction project, which now we've taken all the way through to completion, and it's been very successful, basically on time, despite some delays related to COVID at the end. Also, the community center project, where we were able to get about $20 million for funding for modernization, for the task force on racism that we've just initiated, that I think is going to continue for quite some time. And then the small area plan that we're developing for Connecticut Avenue and what we've dubbed the Chevy Chase Gateway. So we're very proud of those things. There are going to be opportunities for us to work on those in the coming years.
Thank you. And last but not least, Michael Zeldin.
Good evening, and thank you very much to the CCCA for hosting this forum. My name is Michael Zeldin. I've lived in the District of Columbia for 50 years. My wife and I have 2 children who were born and raised here in the District of Columbia, and we've lived on Tennyson Street for 30 years. I've been involved in local politics since the time of Julius Hobson through Mayor Bowser. I have a close working relationship with many on the DC City Council and in the Mayor's office, having served on the DC State Democratic Committee together. Since I have decided to run, I have had regular conversations with Janice Lewis George, who will be our new Ward 4 representative, as we share ideas for improving our city. I believe that I have the skills and the experience necessary to be an effective ANC commissioner. I've been a legal aid lawyer and a public defender. I've been a federal prosecutor and a teacher in college and law school. And most recently, I have been a legal analyst for CNN, covering the Mueller investigation and impeachment. Most important, however, I have worked with or litigated against the DC government agencies that affect our lives daily and with whom the ANC will interact also. I think it's time for us to demand more from our government and that we can collectively make our lives better. I have just retired from CNN, and so I have the time to devote to this full time, and I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. The next section is going to be questions and answers. These questions are not designed to be gotcha questions. Since only one of the races is a contested race, it's really about trying to understand the thinking of the candidates as they move forward in their races, but also for those uncontested races as they become ANC commissioners. With that, we're going to start and we're going to work our way backwards in the alphabet. So the first question is to you, Michael. How have you worked in your community to make life better for its residents?
Well, thank you for that question. As I said, I've lived in this community on Tennyson Street for 30 years. So it depends on at what period of time we're talking about it. When my kids were very young, I was very active in their schools. We went on field trips. I participated in the PTA. We selected a new head of school. And I was an active parent, as is Stacy and others who have younger children than do I now. In my later years, I served on the DC State Democratic Committee, working with the state committee to help improve the quality of life in our city. And most recently, as I indicated, I have been on CNN trying to articulate, I think, a reasoned point of view about the issues that face our community so that we can all become better and more informed citizens as we move forward through these very trying times together.
Thank you. Randy.
Well, I've been really working hard over the last 8 years, representing particularly my constituents, but the broader community as well. There are just lots of little things that come up in the community. Things like, for instance, today I was working on clearing some tree debris on a street that I had to find out who was going to be responsible for it. And it wasn't the National Park Service, despite it being on National Park Service land. So I had to find somebody to do it. Those kinds of little things, I think, are very rewarding. And I feel like they've made some contributions to the community. On a bigger scale, though, I mean, I really think the community center project is going to be life-changing for a lot of people in our community. And so I want to make sure that that project goes through to its completion, as well as the small area plan, which I also think is going to be a major boon for all of our businesses along Connecticut Avenue.
Thank you. John Higgins. You're on mute, by the way. No, now you're back on mute. You need to unmute.
I did. I clicked the unmute button, but is it working?
You're good.
No. Okay. I don't have as much experience as the others in actual community involvement in a civic sense. I have been a volunteer in Montgomery soccer coaching. I was president of the St. Anselm's Parents Association. So I have endeavored to make some, to put something back into the community, but not to the degree that the others have. But I hope I'm a quick learner and can make a contribution.
Thank you. Lisa Gore.
My response to that would be not part of my community service, but actually one of the first jobs that I held out of college, which was here in DC when I first moved in 1990, and it was DC Superior Court. I was a probation officer, and I was a probation officer for all of Northwest bilingual Hispanic speaking clients. And one of the things that I quickly noticed when I went there, and this is representative of my personality, was as the only bilingual for all Spanish speaker juveniles in the District of Columbia, mainly segregated in Northwest DC, my probationers did not have access to the same social services as English speaking clients, particularly psychological evaluations. So I spent a lot of time advocating for that and actually procured the first bilingual Spanish-speaking psychological provider for Spanish-speaking youth in this city. And that was a big accomplishment, even through my career, which now I'm at 28 years, that, I don't know how to measure that, but very proud of me advocating for them at that time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chris Frommaluti.
Yeah, so I think probably the most significant thing I've worked on in the last few years on the ANC that affects community is what Randy mentioned, was the working with on the community center renovation. And at that time, the ANC did a major survey of the community, found out what they were interested in a new community center. And then I worked with the park of Parks and Recreation and the architect that they selected to try to, to accomplish a new community center. When it turned out that we didn't have enough money to do that, I got on the bandwagon of which the Planning Commission had sort of started, which is combining the community center and the library in one project and possibly adding housing to the mix. And I think that's going to be a very interesting and worthwhile venture coming up. So I see my time's up, so that's it. I could go on for hours.
Thank you. Connie Chang?
Thank you. I have not held local office, but everywhere I've worked, whether it was for a banking institution or the National Institute of Standards and Technology at Gaithersburg or the U.S. Department of Commerce downtown, or my consulting work with the National Science Foundation, I've always tried to do what I could to create a community. And specifically for ours, the last 3 years, I've been much more involved as my kids have gotten older. I was very much involved in the community center when we were right before asking the DC government for money. I spent a vacation in London. I don't think Randy or Chris know this, but I spent a vacation in London with a friend. I was supposed to be relaxing and went to the library and wrote a 25-page proposal for a vision for the community center, aspects of which Randy was able to use. And then Chris invited me to serve on the group when we were working with the architect. So I'm very much interested in staying involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stacy Beck?
Yeah, I have been quite involved in the Lafayette Elementary School community. I served 2 terms on the board of the Home and School Association, 5 times as a room parent. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is with 2 other women in the neighborhood, Lydia Weiss and Katie Burke, we have formalized Lafayette's community service program under the name Lafayette Gives Back. We've built a relationship with a sister school in Tacoma Park, Tacoma Education Campus, and over the past 2 years have helped them get school supplies, books for their children. Particularly, we did a book drive this summer that helped their children build their home libraries. And we're actually, I hope you guys will all look out for it, about to kick off a second phase of the book drive because it was so successful that all the books have been taken. So that's my way of giving back, and it's been very rewarding.
Thank you. So let's start with Lisa on the next question. And this, because many of you have mentioned having children still in school, this question would apply to all of us. The mayor has been assessing reopening schools. What would you advise the mayor as an ANC commissioner as the conditions for reopening schools? So Lisa, let's start with you. You understand that question?
Yes. So basically, what would I advise the mayor in terms of conditions to reopen school?
Mhm.
I would definitely advise the mayor when conditions are safe and when the positivity rate has reduced. At this time, I think there's some controversy out there regarding DC district numbers. So I would want to see clear and transparent numbers and to know that those numbers are free of error and that all families would be safe going back to school and that schools are prepared to report accurately and transparently if issues arise with further positives within the school environment. So we've seen some issues about that. I would also advise her to definitely have a plan for in case those positive cases spike. So what would that look like? How would we transition, or how would kids deal with that? And particularly kids that don't have access to transportation or that live in wards where their parents aren't able to telework like a lot of people in our ward. So to make things equitable.
Thank you. John Higgins, same question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, first of all, I think I would pay attention to the CDC different phases and make sure that we are in an objectively safe phase. On the other hand, I would also perhaps check around with the private schools because some of them have gone back. They may have some insights or some methods of protection that are working for them, which might be applicable to DC. But I certainly wouldn't want to do anything too prematurely. Just kind of learn as much as we can and make sure we're on the right track.
Great, thank you. Randy Speck.
As with everything else related to COVID-19, we need to follow the science. If the scientists tell us that it's okay, then, and the statistics indicate it's okay, then I think we can go back. I think we've also got to take into account, though, the fact that right now, with lots of kids on virtual learning, that's a very difficult process for them. My grandkids are doing that right now, and I know how difficult it is, especially with working parents, 2 working parents who are at home as well. So I think we need to get kids back in school if we can. If we're not able to do that, though, we certainly have to have a better system to be able to ensure that not only kids in our neighborhood, but kids all over the city are able to engage in virtual learning. It's difficult enough as it is, but if you don't have the proper technology or you don't have the proper support, it can be even more difficult. So I think we've got to make a balance here to get kids back to school whenever we can and it's safe.
Thank you. Michael Zeldin.
So I agree with everything that everyone has said. Obviously, we're all people who believe in science and safety and want to make sure that our kids return into a safe environment that's fully and adequately staffed with the supplies and the social distancing obligations that a school should have. What concerns me more, I think, because I think we can get that part right, that's not so hard. What I'm concerned with much more is what I think we're going to see as the impact of the digital divide as kids come back to school. I think that we're going to find that there are kids who did well in the virtual learning environment and kids who did not fare very well in the virtual environment. And I'm very concerned as a former teacher, how it is that a teacher is going to accept kids that are going to be at very different levels than when they started than where they are now. And I think the schools have to address this question to figure out what they want to do, because you do not want to stigmatize kids by holding them back because they didn't have a digital footprint to get there. And you don't also want to have a classroom with kids who are teaching at being taught at very different levels. So that's my biggest worry, is what happens when they get back there in this educational divide.
Thank you. Stacy Beck.
Yeah, well, like a lot of working parents on this Zoom, this is near and dear to my heart. We would all love to have our kids back in school. But if I was advising the mayor, what I would say is, yes, as Randy said, listen to the scientists. But second of all, once you set metrics that have to be met before schools reopen, you have to stick to those metrics. I mean, I think we all, the mayor's in a little bit of a challenging position with respect to opening widely, because obviously with Maryland and Virginia right next door, it makes sense to do things in a consistent fashion. But I think she has gotten a deserved criticism for not meeting her own metrics before announcing that the district would move to phase 2. So I think that she needs to set metrics and then stick to those metrics before she opens schools. And certainly, Michael is definitely right. We need a strong look at the digital divide as we look at this issue.
Thank you. Connie?
Hi, I'm in agreement. I mean, I think science and statistics and tracking the results of metrics that we're following is really important. But I would say that right now with the flu coming on, I mean, my greatest concern is, are people going to get their flu shots, and what is that mix? And we could have a second wave. And so I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And if we were to open, I would open it in a staggered way. My daughter's in college right now. They had 2 weeks of quarantine, and then they get tested twice a week. And a lot of those kids are asymptomatic, and then they have to kind of be quarantined separately again. So for little kids, that's pretty traumatic. And so I think we have to be careful, and we have to monitor the rates as we continue to test a greater population and see how we are doing. as we open up restaurants and so forth even now, but with the flu coming on, I think there's got to be some policy there where people are really getting their shots and inoculating themselves. So we're not dealing with two crises.
Thank you. Chris Romboludi.
Hi, you guys are going to be a hard act to follow. I agree with everything that everybody's said. You know, one, I'm not an educator, and secondly, I'm not a scientist, but I think we definitely have to, you know, we have to follow the science. We have to do what's right medically. At the same time, it's very important that we get kids back in school for all the reasons you've mentioned. Some kids don't have the tools to study virtually, and then we have parents that need to go to work, so their kids have to go to school. So I think personally, the thing that seems to make sense to me after no school is a part-time school. I've known a number of schools and universities that do have 2 days a week class on, 2 days a week off, and 1 day to scrub and clean up the school. So, but you know, let's stick with the experts, and once you make a decision, let's stick with that also. Let's not use politics to flip around. So that's my.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's get back to the top of the batting order. Stacy Beck, what issue would you like to champion, and what expertise do you bring to that issue as an ANC commissioner?
Well, the issue that really propelled me to get involved in this race is education. We're lucky to live in a neighborhood with an excellent public school system. From Lafayette to Deal to Wilson, they're all great. But in some ways, they have been a little bit of a victim of their own success. You know, Lafayette and Deal were renovated within the last decade, and yet they are bursting at the seams. Lafayette was built to house 805 students. The principal told us this week that 930 have enrolled already. Deal is similarly situated. It was renovated when they added the Reno building in 2007 to hold 1,200 kids. I know Principal Neal told us recently that 1,400 had registered for the year, and that she thought was low. So I really want to push DCPS to address this problem of overcrowding of the public schools in our neighborhood. And as a 10-year DCPS parent, I have a lot of inside information about that.
Thank you. Connie Chang.
The issue that's most important to me is the strip of Connecticut Avenue where we have our local businesses and our community center and library. There are businesses that are closing, and with COVID, with no end in sight really, I think that we really have to do all we can to get ourselves onto that Main Street USA program so that we can bring in some government money for grants for these local businesses. We have to attract local businesses here that will stay and are committed. For our community center and library, that's like, I want it to be walkable. I want our neighborhood to be walkable. I want us to be able to have programming there when we can, so that we have cohesiveness and inclusiveness. That's very important. And if we don't have a thriving business community, if we don't have a place where we can go as a group in this ANC, I think we lose a lot. And so I want to be focused on that, and I will be focused on that in the coming 2 years if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I like to focus on what I've been focusing on, and you know, being an architect and knowing a lot about design and planning and zoning and things like that. I bring a lot of expertise to a subject that many people don't know that much about, and I enjoy doing it also. You know, I enjoy, I really want to make Chevy Chase as beautiful an area as possible. I think if an area is attractive and well planned and safe, and all the other things that go with it, then people will want to live here, you know, and people will be happy. So I'm very interested in the community center project. I'm interested in this Connecticut Avenue study, which I think could have a major effect on our neighborhood if it comes out the wrong way. And I'm also interested in helping people with the zoning issues, or, you know, somebody's neighbors building a big building in their backyard. You know, they call me up and I can help them because I know about the code and I know how these things work. So that's what I'm interested in.
Thank you. Lisa? We're all friends now, so I can call you by first names, right?
Absolutely. There's a lot of issues that are close to my heart, but I think I'll answer this as two-part. First part is immediate neighborhood, and one of my things that I would be really focused on is infrastructure. So I'm very concerned, and I think one of the candidates already said about transportation issues. I live off of Western and 31st Street, so the E6 bus line has been an issue. We just got the M4 bus line back, and I'm really concerned about those lines, especially that E6, making sure that that stays in place. And I am a proponent of a walkable neighborhood and a safe neighborhood. Just driving up and down Western Avenue, I see time and time again where people have to make room for pedestrians, and the same thing with Connecticut Avenue. I do like the approach that the ANC is doing with the community center and the library to kind of slow down and make sure we take those issues into account to include affordable housing. And then on a broader aspect, I'm a criminal justice professional, and at this time, criminal justice reform and equality and equity is a very big issue that's key to my heart. So I have a 28-year, criminal justice background, so I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Thank you very much. John?
Well, I agree with two of my previous colleagues on two issues. I would support economic development very strongly. That doesn't mean we have to go and chase Amazon to come in and build a building on Tenley Circle. I think more of what Connie was talking about, that the small and medium-sized businesses should be supported in any way we can to develop, and as much as we can to have those be homegrown businesses that are indigenous to our neighborhood. Secondly, the E6 bus is a big factor for me and the constituency of which I am a part here at Knollwood. And so we want to make sure that that returns to its original service level. That's it.
Thank you. Randy, you might have answered this question before, but please shoot again.
Well, I want to champion the Chevy Chase Gateway. This is what we branded essentially in connection with the comprehensive plan. We want to have that be an iconic area coming into the city so that it represents our neighborhood, not only the physical parts of it, but the inclusiveness of that part of our neighborhood. So, and there are all kinds of things that relate to that. The Main Street is a part of it. The small area plan, which is going to be very, very important in terms of defining what we want that to look like over the next 20 years. The community center and the library are also significant parts of that. So it sort of encompasses everything. If we think about the Chevy Chase Gateway as being representative of our community and the way we want to portray ourselves to people coming into the district. So that's where I'm going to focus my attention over the next 2 years.
Great, thank you. And Michael?
So going last, am I allowed to say all of the above and just check that box?
Well, I'd like you to talk about the one thing you'd really like to champion.
Well, there are a lot of things I'd really like to champion, but most of them have been talked about already. So I'll talk about one that I think is critically important that hasn't been talked about, which is environment. We live in an area where water runs rapidly down into the Rock Creek estuaries, and it is polluting it terribly. We heard on the ANC meeting the other day what Knollwood is going to try to do to prevent runoff from their facility into the park. I think there's a ton of things that we can do, from composting to the River Smart program to porous surfaces to LED lighting to environmental literacy in the schools. There's so much that the environment needs and that we can do, and which I think I could be a champion of.
Thank you. We will start the next question with Chris. This one has to do with affordable housing in our neighborhood. The mayor's October 2019 Housing Equity Report set a goal of 1,990 new dedicated affordable housing units in Ward 3 and the parts of Ward 4 west of the park by 2025. Do you agree with that goal? If so, would you, as commissioner, support that goal? If you don't agree with that goal, please explain.
No, I absolutely agree with the goal. I think for all the for many, many reasons, I think people of different incomes should live, in Chevy Chase. It would make it a much more inclusive community. I think it would be, but it's unfair to economically segregate certain people in certain parts of the city, give them poorer education, poorer services, and it's just not right. And we've been reading about this. There've been demonstrations. I mean, look at the police. The whole issue of policing and everything. So I am very much in favor of it. I think the small area plan that the planning department that Randy is mentioning, and some of the stuff in the planning department talks about upzoning parts of Connecticut Avenue. That's a great opportunity to bring in some affordable housing and workforce housing. And we shouldn't just do inclusionary zoning. We need to get some decent numbers in there and really get some inclusiveness in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yes, I absolutely support that and support the push toward affordable housing. I think about it from some of the neighbors that I've talked about that even live here that want to remain in place. Our kids coming back here. I mean, I would love for my son to be able to afford to live in Chevy Chase on his own. I have a mom that lives in Winchester, Virginia, and she is transitioning right now. She's looking to get out of her single family house and transition to a senior area. So she can't afford this area, even though she knows about Knollwood. So I absolutely support that. I think we can reach those goals. And I think the ANC, more importantly, is moving in the right direction to make sure that we do reach that goal.
Thank you. John?
Well, I'm not as familiar with this issue as others, so I don't want to go too far out on a limb. Obviously, I think having a range of people who are of all incomes who can live in any part of the city is a laudable goal. I would trace this back, however, maybe to the economic development part, and try to get as many people more equipped to live in this neighborhood. I'm a little bit concerned about a formula which says X number of units or something like that. I think I would rather, I'm kind of thinking top of my head here, but I think I would emphasize more of a process to assist people with mortgages, with other kinds of assistance, so that they can buy, say, a home of their own or in one of the existing units. Now, I'm not necessarily opposed to putting new buildings in, but I think we should integrate it with the process of improving people's ability to live in this district.
Thank you. Randy?
Yeah, affordable housing is really an important aspect for our neighborhood. I don't think we should shy away from it. But that 1,990 units is difficult to allocate among the ANCs in Ward 3 and Ward 4, but we certainly need to do our share of it. And our task force on racism, and the housing group in particular, which Connie Chang is also on that, we've been focusing specifically on getting a lot more affordable housing in our neighborhood through a variety of mechanisms, and we're going to continue to be doing that. Affordable housing, it means a lot of different things to different people, but I think inclusiveness is what we really are seeking here. An opportunity for anyone to live in our neighborhood, regardless of their income, regardless of their ethnic backgrounds. They ought to be able to live here and take advantage of the opportunities that exist in our neighborhood.
Thank you. And Michael?
So I can say unequivocally that I support affordable housing. One of the great tragedies of the growth of Washington, D.C.'s economic base is the loss of affordable housing. I remember when I was in the Justice Department, I had secretaries who would commute from God knows where for their GS2 job because there was no place they could live in the District of Columbia. It's a tragedy. Whether or not 1,990 is too modest a number or too ambitious a number remains to be seen. But the reality is that affordable housing is almost a health right to citizens of our community. We are, I think Randy will know better. I think that we, as a ward, the 3-4 area of Chevy Chase has the lowest number of affordable housing in the city. And that's not acceptable. We have to set an example. We cannot talk a talk and not walk a walk. And so I favor it. The number, it remains to be seen. As I said, it may be too low for what the needs of this community can support.
Thank you. Stacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like we're all pretty much in agreement on this, that our neighborhood needs more affordable housing. And when we talk about affordability, we can't look solely at low-income housing. Certainly there is a need for that. But honestly, the middle class is being shut out of our neighborhood, the way that the rents and the housing prices have just skyrocketed. So I really think that both pieces are important to make our neighborhood more affordable and welcoming to people of all income levels. Like Randy and Mike said, I don't have, frankly, enough knowledge to know whether the mayor's precise number is the right number for our neighborhood, but I think that the goal is in the right place, that we have to welcome low-income housing into Chevy Chase.
Thank you. And Connie?
Yeah, this is, I'm in agreement with everyone else. I think this is an extremely important issue for DC as a whole, for equity reasons, you know, for racial justice reasons. We have a history that we have to reconcile ourselves with here in our neighborhood, and it's very important that we do so. I think that we can raise density. I'm a New Yorker. I was born and raised in New York, and certainly along the streets where there's commerce and along transportation lines, on Connecticut Avenue and so forth, I think we can increase that density. And also there are apartment buildings where there are affordable rents, and we have to make sure that they're there. But even within our neighborhoods, we could think about middle housing. These are all things that we're thinking about on the housing workforce to see what really makes sense. We came here for a reason, but I tell you, I could not have afforded this place 22 years ago. My husband and I bought our home right before the market went up. We got lucky, and I want other people to get as lucky as us and be able to stay here and grow their families.
Thank you. I can't seem to get a fight out of any of you. You're going to have a very compatible, nice ANC, Randy. One last question before we go to the final wrap up, and this can be very brief. What is your position on renaming Wilson High School? And we'll start with Stacy.
I am strongly in favor of renaming Wilson High School. I was a little bit disappointed when the mayor's recommendations came out. The people on the task force, I think, made a strategic error in lumping in things like the Washington Monument with Wilson High School. And it was frustrating because I think that the controversy over some of their recommendations with respect to the founding fathers really overshadowed a lot of the good work that they did in highlighting. I mean, one of the things that was fascinating was, let's look at the places in DC and see how many are named for white men. I mean, in addition to the segregation issues with Woodrow Wilson, there's just also a diversity question. We live in a very diverse city where almost everything is named after white men. We need to see more people of color, more women represented in the institutions and who they're named after. So I 100% hope that they rename Wilson High School.
Thank you. Connie?
I have no quarrel with it. My kids, my eldest just went through. I think that a name matters. I mean, the first thing we all did when we introduced ourselves was say our name. Our name matters, and what we do matters, and who we celebrate absolutely matters. I agree 100% with Stacy. And we have to, our reckoning is to, for ourselves, is to look at the surrounding areas, everything, our Newland Fountain, Chevy Chase Fountain, everywhere, and decide what is it that we represent, who are we? And what do we want to celebrate moving forward? Because 3 decades, 4 decades from now, people are going to look at us and ask us, what did we do during this time? This is a great moment for us, and we got to seize it, and we have to do the right thing, really, for the next generation. So full agreement.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I'm in favor of renaming Wilson High School. You know, I think it's important that, you know, the city and the people that live here are happy with the names of all the various, you know, streets and buildings and circles. And, you know, Wilson, I think is not the worst, most egregious case. I think the most egregious case in our neighborhood is the Newlands Fountain. I mean, there was a guy that was out and out racist. He was a racist all over the country. Everything he did was based on white supremacy. I think that's a class 1 in my book to get rid of. Like, Wilson is a class 2. Wilson was a racist also, but I think you got to look in the times he was in, and I think he was just playing along with everybody else there. And he did a lot of good things. So I'd say he's a class 2. And then you get where, and the mayor really cheapened this thing by going after George Washington and the Washington Monument. I mean, I'm not really in favor of renaming the city and things like that. But Wilson High School, yes, we definitely should rename it.
Thank you, Chris. Lisa?
Yes, I'm definitely in favor of renaming the high school. The thing that I would say about this is that I agree wholeheartedly with Connie. Names matter, and when kids walk through a school, they should walk through and they should be proud of where they go. And they do pay attention to these things. I grew up in rural Virginia, so I was around a lot of monuments and school names, and they do have an impact on you because as a minority kid in that environment, you look at that and you try to identify with it, and sometimes you can't. So I would like to see, the school name for somebody that represents our values and something that's going to be positive for everyone that attends that school.
Thank you. John?
Well, I would say that in changing the name would be appropriate, but I have some reservations about doing this without doing these things in conjunction with an appreciation of history and a context of what's going on. I don't think necessarily putting up a new name anywhere without understanding the context of why it is being done and communicating to both the students and to the community what the perspective is. I think the point was made that Wilson did do some good things in his administration. Unfortunately, he has this rather checkered, to say the least, aspect of his career. But I think but I don't think we should necessarily forget our heritage in this process.
Thank you. Randy?
John makes a very good point, I think. With regard to the fountain in Chevy Chase Circle, for instance, when we advised the National Park Service to make a change in the name, we emphasized that we also need to have an explanation there. And so they're going to be putting up Wayfair signs that will explain why the change was made, why it was done in the first place, and what Newland meant, what he represented. We've got others. There's a street named Newlands. There's a park named Newlands. We ought to be thinking about those as well. We should certainly change the name, I think, of Wilson High School. And it's difficult to choose anyone as a representative to have their name on a high school. No one is perfect. There are going to always be some criticisms of whoever it is selected. I think we need to be very careful in how we make that decision.
Thank you. Michael?
So in my mind, I refer to it as Julian Bond High School. I am looking forward to Wilson being removed from this. I mean, to Chris and John's point, I think Jackson and Wilson and Nixon and Trump are the most autocratic presidents we've ever had. And I think it can be explained, Randy, as you would like it to, so that people understand why this name is being removed from that high school. I think naming matters. I think symbols matter. And I think that as long as it is fully explained so that people understand it, it makes sense, which does dovetail into one of the things that I feel is important, which is that we don't teach this history in our schools. We need to have African-American history literacy. We need to have environmental literacy taught in our schools so that people are learning this, so they understand the history from which they derive, and so they can make better plans for the future.
Thank you. Before we move to the sum up, and I have a bunch more questions, but I promise it'd be an hour.
I got nothing else to do. You want to keep talking?
Speak for yourself, Mike.
Well,
See,
one thing I want
this is the benefit of having grown children.
One thing I want you to know is that we're recording this session. It's going to be posted on the CCCA website. I believe it's going to be posted on the ANC website. I hope it is. We will promote that, and we will ask people to go to that and get a chance to learn more about the candidates. So with that, brief sum up. Will you start us on that, Connie, please?
Are we doing 30 seconds or 1 minute?
Yeah, let's do 1 minute.
I'd like to thank the Chevy Chase Citizens Association for this opportunity to introduce myself, and for Samantha for keeping such good time. My campaign motto is building better together. Do better, be better, live better. We have an opportunity to reimagine and reshape our neighborhood for decades to come. I want to serve as your advocate on the ANC to make great things happen. I ask for your support and your vote. And to find out more about me, please go to my website, Connie KM Chang for ANC.com, which will go live over this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Well, I hope everybody votes for me who's able. I'm looking forward to serving another 2 years on the commission, and working on some of these things that we've talked about. There's a lot of very interesting items coming up. As we mentioned, the new Chevy Chase Gateway, I just enjoy. I'm looking forward to staying in part of the neighborhood and being able to help my constituents with their small problems. I'd say a good 50% of this job is small problems. It's not big, earthy, weighty problems. It's but somebody's stop sign or the garbage isn't being picked up. And, those little victories are actually sometimes more fun than the big ones. So I'm looking forward to continuing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. Thanks for everyone that came out tonight and listened to us. And I just want to say that I'm just very excited for the potential opportunity to serve as a commissioner for ANC3 for G01. Ready to do this role. I know it's a volunteer role, but I am going to roll my sleeves up 100%. Just like Michael, hopefully in the next few months, I'll have 100% free time so that I can dedicate my time to the neighborhood and the community. And, Chris said too, I'm looking forward to the small issues and the big issues. There's no issue that I'm not willing to tackle. There's no issue that I'm not willing to advocate for. And there's no person I'm willing to contact and go to bat for my neighborhood. So if you want to learn a little bit more about me, my website is lisaforanc.com, and looking forward to hearing from you and working towards your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Well, this has been a very interesting hour. I think I've learned an awful lot, and I think it has reinforced my idea to join the ANC. I mentioned that I've been in the neighborhood for 50 years, and you can probably tell that, and since I'm at Norwood, I think you can probably tell that I'm well into my retirement years. What I would do is everybody who is listening here, first go out and vote. Secondly, get engaged. I think my presence here underscores the idea that it's never too late to engage. So I just encourage our people in the community to engage however they can in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Randy?
This is a spectacular group of people here. I am so looking forward to working with all of you. This is a difficult job sometimes, but it's an incredibly rewarding job. And I have enjoyed the time I've been on the commission immensely. Now, however, I am really looking forward to the next 2 years because we are at an inflection point in some respects. This is an opportunity for us to really take charge of what our neighborhood is going to look like for the next 20 or 40 years. So all of you are going to be incredibly involved in this, and that includes whoever loses in single member District 4. We're still going to want you to be involved. We want everyone to be involved. This is our neighborhood. We need to hold on to it and make it a lot better. Thanks for everyone for coming out.
Thank you. Michael.
Well, thanks to the CCCA for holding this forum. I think, like Randy said, this was really informative and a lot of fun. I want to leave the listening audience, if you will, with a couple of takeaways about my candidacy. First, I think that I have a long history with the DC agencies that affect our lives most specifically. The ANC work is split into 2 parts, really. It's the basic blocking and tackling, the potholes, the cracked sidewalks, the streets that have cars that speed down them too quickly. In my experience with those agencies, working with them, litigating against them, I think will hold our constituents in good stead. As well, however, we are an incubator of democracy. We are the ones who develop ideas and percolate them up the chain so that the decision makers, whether it be the mayor's office or the DC City Council, have the informed consent of those who they represent when they make their decisions. And I think I can be a voice for that effectively. My website is michaelzeldin.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Stacy?
Thanks again to the CCCA for hosting this. And I very much agree with what everyone has said, that this is just a really incredible group of people who are taking time out of their lives to consider doing a volunteer job for public in public service. And it's very impressive. So I do still have kids at home, but luckily I'm a mom, so I'm used to doing 3 jobs at once. And I hope that you've learned a little bit about me tonight, but I'm mostly interested in learning about you, the voters who are here in Chevy Chase, the single member district 34G04. So I hope folks will go to my website, stacybeckforanc.com, and drop me a line and let me know what you're thinking about. I've really enjoyed talking with you all tonight, so I hope to earn your trust and your vote.
Thank you very much. From the standpoint of Chevy Chase Citizens Association and president, I look forward to working closely with you on so many issues that we've discussed tonight. It's been so much fun and so heartwarming in a lot of ways to get to know you better and to see that this that the ANC is going to be in great hands. I live in 06, which there has been nobody has come forward. So if either of the 2 candidates from 04 would like to move into my house and then become to be a write-in candidate, I'd be pleased to have that. Kidding aside, thank you so much for participating. This message will go out. It's going to be splashed around in other fora. So thank you again.